Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast. Our primary objective is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never quit. The reality of life is simple. We all fall. We all fail. At times, we get knocked down. The question is, do we get back up? Are we stronger? Are we better prepared to attain the maximum of our potential? Thank you for joining our No Quit tribe. As you go for your greatness today, never quit. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. Welcome to episode number 433 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth. Today's theme of the day is the third time is the charm. Our quote of the day comes to us from Sarah Dessen. Sometimes you get things right the first time, others the second, but the third time, they say, is the charm. If you would like to support our show, the best way you can do that is by subscribing, sharing, and leaving us a review on either iTunes or Spotify. You can additionally support what we do by purchasing our books, any of our apparel, or the Clear Planner. You can head on over to noquitliving.com or thepositivitytribe.com for more information. Thank you. I had an absolute blast speaking with today's guest. I was first introduced to him when I saw him audition on America's Got Talent. Not only did Dustin Tavella do a fantastic job with that audition, but he ultimately won America's Got Talent. I know you'll appreciate hearing from him. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Dustin, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Awesome, man. Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
I appreciate it. I know the answer to this question, but it's the first question we ask everybody is if you're ready to positively impact at least one person today.
Oh, dude, every day, bro. That's what this is all about, man. That's why we started doing this magic stuff in the first place.
So speaking of this magic stuff, you were the winner of America's Got Talent in 2021,
Yes,
which is where I first saw you, but we've connected since that show. And the second question I ask everybody is their no-quit story where they could have given up or given in, but they didn't. And I was curious if you wouldn't mind sharing your story with our listeners and viewers.
Yeah, man. I feel like there's like the long version of this. I'll try and find like the medium version for this setting. But so actually before magic, I was doing music stuff. I fell in love with magic when I was like 9 years old. I learned to like do some tricks. My uncle had bought me a magic trick from a professional magic shop. Learned to twist balloons, and I would dress up like a clown and do birthday parties and crazy stuff like this. And it was great, man. And then I got to be like 12 and 13 when my friends thought it was weird that I was dressing up like a clown. So I stopped, not thinking I could keep doing magic just without the clown suit. But for some reason, the clown suit went with the magic stuff. So got really passionate about music. Did that all through high school. After high school, pursued a music career. And it was amazing. But I think over time, as social media kind of started taking over everything, the reason I fell in love with just entertainment in general is because I love connecting with people. And so started pursuing a music career. Social media started taking over. I had a lot of amazing opportunities while I was doing music, but started to feel empty, man. I felt like every day was just kind of just to compete with everyone else, right? Every day was kind of just to keep my social media numbers up, to keep my following there, to keep downloads active, like just all these things that distracted me from the actual connection point. And it's funny because I felt like I was promoting so much and yet performing and creating so little, right? I feel like when you start getting into the building a brand aspect of your career, sometimes you spend so little focus on the brand itself and just, how to get people aware of your brand. And so, I don't know, man, started feeling really empty and kind of lost because this was this thing that I loved. I loved connecting with humans. And I felt like the minute I stepped away from social media and promoting myself, and connecting on people, my career was like falling apart, right? So it's like I was doing the things that I love, but then I wasn't making any money. And so, I don't know, man, randomly met a magician probably about, 5 or 6 years ago at this point, like 6 years ago now at this point. And gosh, I just saw the way he was connecting with people and the way that he was just, he would just bust out a deck of cards or some coins, and all of a sudden there'd be all these people around, different skin colors, different ages, different backgrounds, just all in this one little huddled up group. And I envied it, man. I was like, gosh, this is just so cool the way that he's able to just like connect with these people and encourage them and kind of just create this space of life and community. So I really wanted to start pursuing it, man. And I started thinking about America's Got Talent and the fact that they are a platform where you can tell stories. So I was just so stoked, bro. I put some stuff together, started creating some magic stuff, and Very quickly ended up in an audition. Actually, Tyra Banks got me my first audition because she was friends with a friend of mine who had just done a movie with her. I knew when I was doing music stuff. So I was like, this is it. I got right in front of the main producers, told them my story. At that time, there's a bunch of other stuff going on in life. And I was like, this is it, man. This is what God has called me to do. I landed right here. All the doors have opened up, right? And then they were like, nope, sorry, you're not ready. And I was like, okay. I was super gung-ho, but I took that as like a challenge to get better. So it was great. I worked really hard that year, kind of took their feedback and the criticism and worked really hard, built. So next year when auditions came around again, I auditioned and got rejected again. So I was like, okay, maybe this AGT thing just isn't for me. Not only could I, like, it wasn't even, it's not that I didn't make it past the judges. I couldn't even get onto the show. They were like, this guy sucks. So, dude, just kept working, man, just trusting and believing that there was something special here. And I think as I honed in, again, on not just the focus on me and like, look at me perform, but really kind of taking that focus and shifting it to empowering other people. I feel like that's when I kind of found my lane, was getting into this space of what I do and what I create can't just be about me, because even if it does succeed, it's still going to be empty, man. It's just, I'm just going to be another guy telling people to watch me all day long. And so I'm grateful for those like 2 years of being rejected 2 years in a row, because, I went back on, knew a little bit more of who I was and what I wanted and where I was going, and never expected to make it as far as I did, but ended up winning the thing. And I'm just super grateful, man. I feel like my character was developed more than anything in this process, even when I was doing music stuff, of just kind of figuring out who I was. And I think that's more important sometimes than knowing what you want to do, but knowing who you are first, so that when you do the things you want, you're able to kind of do it with the purpose that you're called to do it with. So
First of all, I had no idea about the 2 years of getting rejected. I think that's probably the cool and also the challenging part of AGT is you don't obviously have the opportunity to share all of somebody's story, but the fact that you went from getting rejected the first time, people telling you you're not ready, what you said really hit me in the sense where you took that as a challenge. And I think so many people look at failure as you are a failure. And the famous Zig Ziglar has a quote that I've shared probably 100 times in this podcast, but failure is an event, not a person. And you took that failure as a challenge, but then you had a second one, and then you ultimately came back a third time and you won the show, which is really awesome. So a fun question we ask each guest, and I'm obviously going to ask you, but if you had to define yourself, but you could only pick one word, what word would you choose?
So there's like one word that comes to mind and that I would say would be me, and then one word that I would love to live under. The one that I feel like defines me, maybe as one word, would be passionate. I love what I do, and I always want to put myself in places to love what I do. But I think the other thing that I would love to think of myself as, and I think I'm just getting there more and more, is generous. Man, I wanna think of myself as somebody who doesn't see what I have as my own, but someone who's willing to share these things. And sometimes that's a hard thing to be, right? We want to kind of collect and hoard the things that we build, but I feel like more and more have been challenged to just step into the space of generosity. And that doesn't always mean financially. I think just even like the resources and the relationships that we have, the space that we get to work and live in. And I just want to be like someone who's generous with my life.
I love that you touched on the generous part, and not just from the perspective of money. And I don't want to obviously hint that being generous financially is not a good thing, but I think there's two sides to that coin. Is one, the financial generosity, but secondly, being generous with your time, your energy, your efforts. And sometimes, although they don't go always hand in hand, I think sometimes the generosity of helping others is really important. So I'm glad you touched on that, which I think is a good entree to something that you and I spoke about before we recorded, is the concept of believing in others. And you shared a story on America's Got Talent about a time in your life when you were 18, when a gentleman by the name of Keith, I believe, really, really believed in you. And I wanted to, maybe challenging or difficult question, but wanted to ask you how that impacted your life, the fact that somebody really and truly believed in you, and how important it is to believe in not only yourself, but others, and to let other people know that you believe in them.
Yeah. Well, it is kind of cool, actually, as you said this, just thinking of the generosity thing too, because we think that it's hard to let go of money, but I think it's easier to write a check for somebody than it is to give them your time. And I think that was one of the big things with Keith, was that I'm super ADHD, minor version of Tourette's. I had all kind of like facial tics and all kind of quirks that just made me like the annoying hyper kid that no adult wanted to deal with. And I think like there was this part of me that believed when I was young that people would like me if I was just different, right? If I could just be quieter, if I could just be more manageable, if I could just be more like everyone else, like I could be liked, but I'd have to be not me. You know what I'm saying? And and the thing is like there was this part of me that believed like I feel like the stuff that's unique about me is like a superpower, right? I feel like this is something I could use, but like no one sees it. And I think I just started to kind of believe that. And um my parents kind of had the same experience where they were struggling when I was younger and their whole marriage was falling apart, just drugs and alcohol and partying and affairs and all these things. And they had kind of this other couple kind of take them in and take them under their wing. And the same thing, I saw it happen with my parents and I saw the way they completely turned their lives around. And so I think for me, it instilled this thing of like, I know that there's something, but I don't know how to believe these good things about myself. Right. And so anyways, yeah, when I was 18, I moved to Texas. And I met Keith. I was working with this organization that really just focuses on serving people, serving the world around you, like doing like relief work if there's natural disasters, anything like this. And it was really hard to like serve people because I didn't know who I was, right? And so everything that I did, there was also this agenda of almost like it was almost like I was doing it to try and add meaning to my life, which is not bad in and of itself. But I just think that like the motive, it was hard to have the pure motive of just serving people when it was really just me kind of doing it to feel like I'm doing something that matters. And I think the thing that with Keith was cool was like, I just felt like I kept messing up. I kept failing. I kept like just making bad decisions and falling and struggling. And I just was having a hard time believing in myself. And Keith was the first person to kind of just stop me, like grab me by the arms and be like, dude, I don't know whoever told you can't do this, but you can do this, right? Like, another 4 words, right? I believe in you. You can do this. And man, it just rocked me because I never had anyone just tell me this point blank, like you can do this, right? As me, broken, hurting, insecure me, I could still make a difference in the world. I didn't have to carry it out in some perfect manner. I didn't have to be perfect. And what I've kind of found, man, is that like, when we're going out, my wife and I started a homeless ministry that we were doing for a while. And, we've worked with youth and we've worked with people addicted to drugs, people living on the streets, with all kind of different people. And, I've realized that the point of impact has never been the stuff that we know more than them, right? The areas where we've been more successful than them. The point of impact has always been actually the fact that we have struggled like them, right? And I think for me, I always saw my struggles as a thing that limited me rather than a thing that connected me with the rest of humanity. And I think when I started viewing things that way and seeing my struggles as a space to invite people into, to include people, to ask for help, and then to also be help for them, it also kind of evened out the playing field, man. Like I'm not in this. I'm not somebody who goes out and says, I want to make an impact in the world because I have something they don't, right? I just want to share this ability to live life where we can rely on each other. And that's what I always tell people. It doesn't take winning America's Got Talent to do that. Sometimes that AGT message that they want to drive home is like, get on AGT and you can accomplish your dreams. But man, I like to think I was impacting people way before I ever won America's Got Talent, and I will continue to long after this hype wears off. You know what I mean? Like, what makes us as people effective is our decision to be effective. It's not our resources, it's not our money, it's not our influence, it's not winning a competition show. It's just us being us, willing to let people in our lives, to be generous with our time. And I think that's something that Keith really showed me, man. He walked with me day after day after day when I was annoying, when I was failing, when he was having to repeat himself over and over again. And I think his endurance to love people even when it's hard is the thing that changed me forever.
I think that could have been a podcast episode in itself, because I think you touched on some really powerful things. But I love how you position it where it's not just winning a show or being successful or financially being able to give money. Obviously, those things are all part of life and many people's lives. But what you said really hit me. It's you had an impact on people before the show. You had an impact on people, obviously, during the show, and you're going to continue to have an impact. So maybe an interesting question, but to someone who's either listening or watching this now, and maybe they're struggling with not only the belief that they can do something, but maybe subconsciously the fear that it's just they're just one person and they really can't impact somebody.
Yeah.
Maybe if you could share a suggestion or a piece of advice for that person that's
Yeah.
wanting to make an impact on help others, but just don't feel that they have either a big enough platform or maybe
Yeah.
a big enough following.
Yeah. You know, this is a great question. So, and I think it's a question that's a little countercultural or a little controversial, maybe to what some people would think. I think that the greatest impacts in life don't happen in masses anyway. I think that the greatest impacts that I'll ever make will never be from a stage in front of thousands of people. I think the greatest impact we can make it is the small ones. You know what I mean? It is being able to do life hand in hand with people. And I think that, as a magician, it's just no pun intended, I see this as being such an illusion that people need a platform to make a meaningful impact. Find anyone who's experienced incredible change in life, who's done a complete 180. It's never been because they read a post or listened to a podcast that might have inspired it. But I think that most people have found people to champion them, right? Like they have that person in their life who believed in them, who prayed for them, who taught them what it means to have hope. And it's not that even those things can't help. It's just that like when you have, I think consistency is what creates the most change, right? Like someone can't just tell me, Dustin, you matter. And now just because they said it, I believe it, right? If I've been programmed to believe my whole life, if I've taught myself to believe that I don't have significance, one person telling me that I do is not going to be like, oh, stupid me. For 15 years, for 20 years, whatever, I believe that I wasn't significant. But since you said so, and I don't know how much like faith is involved with this podcast stuff, but for me, like as a Christian, when I look at the Bible and I see what Jesus did, I look at his greatest impact not being the stuff he did with the masses. Like the stuff that he did was always with the one, the people who were the most transformed. It was always the time that he took for the one, for the small groups. And that's where even for me, when I look at a lot of even the church sometimes try and make an impact, we've become so brand driven in 2023 that I think sometimes we forget the power of the individual and how meaningful it is to sit with a person and to hear their story and to encourage them. And so maybe this is a longer answer than you were wanting, but I just think when it comes to the people who feel like they don't have enough reach, they don't have enough resources, man, I would say if you got a mouth that works and you got eyes to see a human, man, you got neighbors all around you. Like it's impossible to cut off your reach. It's impossible to cut off your ability to reach people if you are able to open your mouth and encourage somebody. You know what I mean? You're always going to have someone in your circle that needs what you have to offer. So yeah, man, I just I don't see it as a platform or numbers thing.
I think that was so powerful in so many ways, and it's really that compound effect, and it's one person and then one more person, which is why the first question we ask is, are you ready to positively impact at least one person today? And I remember when I first asked it the first time, I kind of, in the back of my mind, I was like, all right, that's kind of cheesy, but almost 400 episodes later, it's impacting one person, and then one person shares an idea, a concept, a quote with somebody else, and that's really the powerful perspective. So I'm sure you've heard of the famous Jim Rohn quote, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." If I could grant you dinner with any 5 people, dead or alive, that you could level up with, which 5 people would you pick?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question, man. There is a guy named Chris Valentin who I really, really love and admire and respect. A woman named Christine Kane. I think from like a spiritual standpoint, those are 2 people I like love the way they communicate. David Copperfield, I think as we talk about, magic and reach and storytelling, David Copperfield is one of those guys who in the beginning, man, people were like, what is this guy doing? And then they were like, oh, now every big illusionist tries to be like David Copperfield, right? And I think a lot of it was his narrative and his story. Musically, I mean, I think probably a lot of people would say like Michael Jackson, right? I think just the ability to glean from that guy's creativity and not to be like cheese or something, but I would say probably my wife, man. She's her story is insane. The things that she's been through and overcome, and her passion and drive to continue to grow and to be a blessing even in the midst of her own struggles, man. That's also the thing that reminds me that like this isn't about me being perfect, but it's about me just kind of continuing to to give, even when I feel like I only have a little bit to give.
I love that, and that was probably one of the most diverse five. Just throwing in your wife, David Copperfield, and Michael Jackson in there. That's quite
an
a
interesting
bit.
dinner.
So, we have these questions that are called the hot seat questions, and we ask each guest. And the only request we have of you is that you just spit out the first thing that comes to mind.
Perfect.
If you had one last meal and you could pick absolutely anything, what do you pick?
Oh, this is gonna be embarrassing, but there's these like there's like these cauliflower crust pizzas. They're frozen pizzas from Aldi's. I don't know why, bro. They're so good. I actually eat like way too many of them, and it's funny because you'd think that my last meal would be one that I couldn't normally have, but if I had one taste in my mouth, probably would have to be that.
That's awesome. What is your favorite smell?
I like fruity smells, man. Every time I'm like in the like smelling candles, I'm always drawn to the fruitier smelling candles.
I love that. What's your all-time favorite sport?
I love ultimate frisbee. I don't know why. I feel like because it's one of those sports that like people can suck at and it's still fun. It's not like, oh, you don't take it too serious, right? So everyone's kind of just still playing.
I love that. Do you have a favorite team of all time?
I'm from Philly, and if you aren't a fan of the Eagles, they murder you. So I have to say that, especially publicly, just for the sake of my life.
I love that. What's your all-time favorite movie?
Well, that's a good one. I feel like it changes from time to time. There's a movie called Little Boy. It's about this kid who just, I don't know, it's like a whole movie based on just like this kid having faith that his dad was going to come home from war. And really cool artistic movie and makes me cry every time. So
that's awesome. I'll definitely have to check it out. Little Boy. Do you have a favorite book?
I feel like I keep getting off point. So there's a book called You Are Special by Max Lucado. It's actually a kid's book. Without saying too much, there's a lot about that book that I want to continue to utilize and create in my future. It's amazing, man. It's just about our worth not coming from people's opinions of us.
That is all. I've never heard that book. That is awesome. What's the favorite app you use on your phone?
I can't tell you because they're all magic apps that I use, and you're not supposed to know they exist. So.
All right. Well, Dustin's going to share that with me offline. Don't worry. What's the background picture on your phone?
It's a picture of my boys and all of their favorite superheroes with a thing that says adopted, because our boys are adopted, and so there's all the superheroes that they love that also were adopted.
That is really cool. That is really
Batman, cool. Batman, Superman, Shazam.
Do you have an all-time favorite quote?
Yeah, it's actually kind of similar to one that you said earlier. But it's by that guy Chris Valentin I was talking about. He says, "True success is going from one failure to the next with no loss of enthusiasm," which I love because I feel like I've experienced a lot of failure, and it always feels like a gut punch. And I'm like, no, I want to be excited in life, man. Sometimes those failures lead to the next awesome thing. So,
I would say not sometimes, but anybody that I've looked up to or followed, it's that failure propelled them to learning, growing, building. Because you're a music guy, I think you'll appreciate and like this question. What's that one song, no matter whenever you hear it, you just automatically turn it up and just absolutely rock out to it?
I would have to say, "Yeah" by Usher. I think it is strangely, like, there's like timeless songs like when we consider oldies. I feel like we're getting to the point where "Yeah" is like an oldie, but somehow like still bumps in the clubs. And it's like, how is this song not old yet? But it's just always so great.
All right. I have another question for you. I don't think you'll get this, but what do you think my one song is? No matter whenever I hear it, I just automatically rock out to it. It's a rap song / hip hop song by a white guy.
A current or older song?
Older song.
Ice Ice Baby?
Yes, you're the man.
Come on, bro. I was like, I'm a magician. Please get this right. I mean, you gave me a little more context than maybe what I would normally get in a show.
I had to, and anybody that's listened to this show, and it's almost, I kid you not, dude, on my car, I you can put favorites and stuff, and I think Ice Ice Baby comes on at least like once or twice every other day, and I just always do a quick like 10-second video and post it just because, again, it was that one song, whether it's 3 a.m. in the morning or 10 p.m. at night, I just automatically tune it up and just rock out to it.
There's another one like that. I feel like, House of Pain, that Jump
Jump
Around.
around. Yeah.
That song, I feel like there was like a 90s movie, a scene from a 90s movie where there's a bunch of kids like jumping on the couch to that song. And I feel like that kid every time that song plays. It's like burned in my brain.
It's so funny you say that. That's the same thing with me and Ice Ice Baby. I'm hoping that when in my 70s and 80s, I'll still have, my wherewithal, because I kid you not, at 80 years old, I'm just gonna. I probably won't be able to hear it. I'll have to turn up super loud, but just absolutely rock out to Ice Ice Baby.
That's amazing.
So in today's day and age, and I think you'll agree with this, there's a lot of negativity out there, and I think the comparison perspective of people posting their just absolute highlight reels on social media.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you if there may be one or two people that you follow that put out good, uplifting information that maybe you'd like to recommend or potentially introduce to our listeners and viewers.
Yeah, man. So it's funny. I'm in this kind of season of life where I've not really just been on social media kind of for that thing. I think that, especially after America's Got Talent, my whole world became so consumed with like just, I don't know, this thing where so many people that have experienced me, I have not experienced, right? Like they've seen me on TV, they've seen me on different things. And so I don't know, man, I think lately I've just been really hungry for like real just connection. Actually, my wife and I we just got back from Hawaii. There's a campus there with a bunch of people who are really great. Just been wanting to spend a little bit more of our time there with them, and just kind of in the midst of everything happening, trying to slow down. So I'm trying to think. There is this one called Fight, Hustle, and Hurry that I go back to every once in a while. The ruthless elimination of hurry, and the one guy's name is Jeff Betsky. He's a part of it. For me, it just resonates just because I'm very fast paced, right? And I think as a creative, as someone who has super ADHD, it's easy for me to kind of just be like trampling over people in my life, just all in the name of pursuing this creative vision. And it's just it's a great reminder of just kind of like slowing down and just remembering, I don't have to be in a hurry in life. I just can exist and enjoy.
I have to say, first of all, I've enjoyed this conversation immensely, but I think of all the answers to that question, and I've been introduced to a bunch of people that I had followed and people that I had not heard of. I think your advice is something that in 2023 that we all need to do more of, which is slow down. And you've talked quite a bit about the relationships and impacting others. And I think the one thing, and I'm curious to get your 2 cents on this, but I think the one thing that social media and technology does, even though it was designed, and I believe it is designed to quote unquote connect people and make it easier to connect with people from all walks of life and maybe people in different time zones, countries. And I think it does that in a sense, but I think it also disconnects people because now you're sitting in front of a phone or a tablet and you're doing less of, and I posted something like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, that really hit me, and the impact and the messages I got after were really impactful. But the gist of it was, what's more important, the strangers or the people you don't know on social media versus the people that you do know that are right in front of you right now? And it wasn't anything ingenious or anything, but it hit me one day. I was actually at a restaurant and I just looked around, and kids and families and parents were literally at the same table and on their devices. And it hit me in that sense. So maybe we're curious about your 2 cents of the value of relationships in real time, I guess.
Yeah. So I actually this is the kind of stuff that I actually love the most. This is the stuff I'm like most passionate about. But so I definitely think social media is a tool, right? It's a thing used to connect people. It's something that can encourage people and inspire people. And maybe this sounds weird, but I always put social media in the same category of money, alcohol, and sex. Like, none of these things are bad in and of themselves, but when used incorrectly, they can destroy nations, right? Like money is a great thing. Sex is a thing like that it's created for connection, and yet you've seen the way it's corrupted entire kingdoms, right? And the way that money has corrupted entire kingdoms. Like, alcohol has literally torn family after family apart. And so I think that these things are, again, they're not bad in of themselves. I think that they're just things that we as humans sometimes have a hard time not only managing, but acknowledging that we have a hard time managing. And so I just think with social media, I just think it's worth taking a look at your life and thinking like, where are areas where maybe there could be some value increased or some connection increased, because sometimes we run to social media to feel a point of connection, and yet we're the most like disconnected generation. This is the most disconnected times we've ever been in. And so I think that our longing for connection is a thing that we all carry. So I think we just have to think of like, if we thrive in places of connection, how do we best position ourselves to connect in a way that's real and authentic? And so, I think social media is a tool. I think it's an incredible way to be encouraged, to share incredible messages like this one. I also just think it's an incredibly sometimes difficult thing to manage, like, again, alcohol, money, sex, right? These things that you can't just point out and call evil.
I think how you worded that makes a ton of sense. And as you were talking, one of the last things you said is we've never been more disconnected, and it's crazy to hear you say that. But as you say that, it's so true. It's, sometimes people would rather text or rather send a message than actually have a conversation. And again, we're all busy, we have things going on. But I think going back to the testament of time, fundamentally, I think we were all put on this earth to connect with people, to have those relationships. And I think, like I said, I'm not in any way knocking social media. And I love how you said it's a tool. And I think just like anything in life, a tool can be a good thing or a bad thing. And maybe it's a terrible analogy, but I don't know why I just thought of like a wrench or a hammer. You could make a house, but you could also hit somebody with it and kill them. So it's like,
bro, actually, so that was actually a concept that I had for a magic trick at one point that I was going to do on AGT, was that exact thing. Was like, a hammer, it's only as destructive or as helpful as the way that you choose to use it. Right. And I think that's a great analogy, man. It's exactly that. Because it's the same, like I said, with money, right? Giving money, like money has helped people. We need money, right? It's like, it's how we survive, bro. But at the same time, it can be such a destructive thing. And so I think it's just, again, it's the management of the things that we've been given. And that's why, just going back to the thing earlier that you said, like when we were talking about, people feel like they don't have enough success or big enough platform. I don't think it's about numbers and size, man. I just think it's about managing what you have. That is the truest form of success. I see people, bro, making tons of money with incredible followings who I would say are failing at life, right? Like their whole thing's falling apart. They can't get off drugs. Their family's completely gone. Like they haven't seen, like, I just don't see that person being happy, right? So how do we even define that success to begin with? And so, man, I think true success, it's the management of what we've been given.
Oh, dude, I love that, and I could not agree more with the context of money and all those things. It's either the best or the worst. It's a tool, or it's a something that in essence kills you. And I think so many people go after money or fame or followers or numbers, and those things are all good, and it's a good thing to have goals and things like that. But the question is at what cost, right? So if you have to have more money and more numbers in your bank account, but your wife or kids or husband, or you're 50 pounds, 100, 200 pounds overweight, there's that question of how much is too much, but then what or how do you personally define success? So I got to ask you, because I want to make sure that you share this, but what's the best way for our listeners to connect with you, follow you, or find out more about some of the stuff you're doing? Because I know you're working on some projects coming up.
Definitely, like, my Instagram, my YouTube is also at Dustin Tavella. I'm working on my new website and stuff, and just really wanting to kind of hit it from a bit of a strategic standpoint. So like right now I've been kind of a little vacant from like my Instagram and stuff, but I think it's one of those things I'm kind of just establishing, like, just because of this thing that we're saying, right? I think that there's people that they're preaching all day long on social media about how people shouldn't be on social media, but they're on social media. So like, it's just, I don't understand. So for me, I think it's more of trying to find like the balance. How do I use this as a tool? And then how do I demonstrate this without feeling like I'm trying to push something on people, but like, I just want to experience the fullness of life, right? So I feel like as I discover that, I want to be able to share it and help create structures for people. But yeah, just at Dustin Tavella, mostly on probably like my Instagram and some YouTubes where I'll start being more active and stuff again. But and then yeah, working on a new show, man. So on all these platforms, on my website, once the new site is launched, there'll be tour dates, of like when we're bringing this new show to people. Really excited about that. Just been spending a long time thinking through a lot of these things. And I think the thing that's great about magic is being able to give a visual to this stuff that we're talking about, right? Like you said, the hammer thing, which makes me now want to go back and figure out a trick to do with this hammer thing.
I'm gonna learn a trick first. I don't know any of them, so I'll
yeah.
So last question I ask everybody, and I'm gonna ask you, is if you have any parting words or advice you'd like to leave with our listeners today.
Yeah, man, I would say never underestimate what you have, what you've already been given. Again, I don't find myself more effective because I've won America's Got Talent, right? Because I have a career that looks better, quote unquote, than it was, a few years ago. I just love encouraging people. And this is like a lot of the main point of my message within my show is like, you get to be magic in the world now, right? You get to be who God has created you to be, to do what you were created to do, like now, today, right? Go find a neighbor, find a family member. And especially for the people who would say that their goal is really to make a positive impact in the world, you need to be doing that off stage, not only on stage. So I would say like, it's the best way to practice is just doing it, man. Text the found, like it takes 2 seconds to send a text. Hey, just wanted you to know, like how you said, so few people have heard those words. I believe in you. Be the person to tell someone that, you know what I mean? Just call somebody, say, hey, I just want to let you know, I believe in you. You have great ideas. I'm supporting you however I can. That stuff goes a long way.
I think that is a fantastic way to end today's episode. So I truly appreciate your time, and I hope that we can connect again soon.
Yeah, likewise, man. It's been amazing. Thank you for having me, dude. Seriously, it's been really cool.
Thank you for listening to episode number 433. Dustin shared some very powerful stuff with us today. Not only did he not get selected his first time auditioning, but he didn't make it on his second attempt either. In his parting words, Dustin encouraged us to tell someone that we believe in them, a message that I 100% support. And as we conclude today's episode, I would like to tell you, our listeners, that I believe in you. I challenge you to let someone in your circle or tribe know that you believe in them. It might sound small, but it can have a huge impact. And remember, we rise by lifting others up.
And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.